Yeah, I know. I just kind of wanted you to see where I was coming from, but I shouldn't have done that to you. Um, you deserved better, and I should have known better. I just hope that you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow.
All right. Hi. You may not know me, but my name is Babilla, and welcome to Things I Thought of, a show where I talk about things that I thought of. Have you ever made a mistake before? Something that keeps you up at night? Something that makes you feel shame? Have you ever been hurt by somebody that you care about? Do you find it hard to let go? These questions follow opposing sides of the topic that I wanted to talk about in today's video. So, what is forgiveness in the first place? We're all probably familiar with the concept, but just to make sure that we're on the same page.
Forgiveness is a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness.
I feel like a lot of people have different definitions of what forgiveness should look like from like an action standpoint. Of course, we all have the blueprint that we were given in childhood. Somebody's wronged me, and once they've apologized, I should say I forgive you. But just like most things in childhood, the actual action of doing so is a lot more complicated than that. See, many people struggle with forgiveness for a lot of different reasons.
I know she didn't mean it, but if I forgive her for it, she'll just think she can turn around and do it again.
It's not fair. If he gets to go on living his life, then he has to deal with the fact that someone out there knows what he did and hates him for it.
She did that to me. If I remember this feeling, if I hold on to it, no one will ever hurt me again.
That's their punishment. They hurt me. So this hurt, this resentment, that is my payback.
But who is this really serving in the first place? If you never learn how to process things, how are you ever going to be able to actually let go of your hurt?
But it's not that easy.
That's right. Learning to let things go is a hard thing to do sometimes, and I don't think it's a process that should ever really be rushed. Some experiences that people have are like very, very obviously traumatic. Some experiences really hit close to home. And that's excluding the fact of, what if you were the one who did something wrong? To get more of an understanding of this, let me set up a little bit of a framework. The way I see it, forgiveness can be split into two different categories: internal and external. External forgiveness is the concept that we're all familiar with. A conscious, deliberate decision to let go of feelings of resentment, kind of like what we said before. On the other side of the coin is internal forgiveness, which is kind of a thing that I've phrased myself. This is when someone decides to let go of the fact that they have done something wrong. Here's some examples of both. Let's say that the situation is something simple, like one individual insulting another person. In the case of external forgiveness, you are the one who's being insulted, and even though this person very clearly wronged you, you still choose to forgive them and let it go. In the case of internal forgiveness, you're the one doing harm, and regardless of whether or not the other individual has decided to forgive you after you've apologized, which you should do by the way, you decide to let it go and not beat yourself up. Now that we're on the same page, one of the most important things that I've thought of that's the name of the show. One of the most important things that I've thought of is what influences our ability to engage in internal and external forgiveness, and the different ways that we can approach it. Different viewpoints view forgiveness differently, which in and of itself is inherently a strange sentence. With my very basic knowledge, I've been focusing on trying to understand how different lenses see the concept of forgiveness. The first thing that drew my attention was how religion plays a part in people's ability to forgive. And then I got a little bit of help to expand a little past that. A quick preface: this is in no way saying that one specific religion or ideology or thought process is the correct way to go about forgiveness. This is just me trying to find different ways to think about it. If this is how you see the world, cool. But maybe after we take a deeper dive into things, you'll gain a little bit of a different perspective. Also, if you have any critiques in my understanding of these concepts, please say something. Leave a comment down below and we can have a discussion about it. These birds really don't like me.
Hey, it's me. I'm trying to keep it down because I don't want future me to be able to hear this, because he'll be very upset, because I know he wants to do this in a totally different way. but I started a Patreon. Patreon is a way for you to continue to support me as I keep on making content. And through that, you get access to an exclusive Discord and exclusive content, names at the end of videos, stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, the link is down below. You should check that out. Awesome. Thanks.
Abrahamic religions have an overall focus on external forgiveness. It's common to hear about how forgiveness should be something that's done generously. Famously, Matthew 7:21-22 says,
Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7.
The thing that makes it interesting is that there seems to be 2 degrees of thought that are happening here. It's forgive like the Lord forgives you, but also forgive so the Lord forgives you. Prior to the popular verse, Matthew 6:14-15 says, In prayer, there is a connection between what God does and what you do. You can't get forgiveness from God, for instance, without also forgiving others. It makes it so that the forgiveness of the individual at fault is at stake, but also yours too. Though the reasoning can vary, I find 2 main takeaways from Abrahamic religions when it comes to forgiveness. A, you should forgive abundantly. And B, the responsibility of forgiving yourself is not one that is yours, but is one that's given to God. Let's try something else. I read a really interesting article about forgiveness in Buddhism. The article states that the concept of forgiveness is transactional and ignores the core tenets of karma.
Don't say anything, Squidward. Remember your karma. What?
Karma in Buddhism is all about how intentional actions affect your current and future lives. This understanding of forgiveness takes acts of feeling, understanding, and later empathy and kind of just throws them out the window. To explain a little bit more, due to Western influence, forgiveness had become something more about making the individual feel better rather than it being a part of actual resolution.
There's no grace in the operation of karma, just as there's no grace in the operation of gravity. The only way to stop the evolution of reactive patterns is to change our relationship with those patterns.
Instead, the article states that forgiveness is just something coming to an end. Just like whenever a bank forgives your debt, no one's coming to collect anymore. But in Buddhism, the central theme of karma is one that's rooted not in transaction, but in evolution. It's all about changing the relationship that you have with certain patterns of behavior. This introduces one of my favorite concepts that I learned about throughout the research for this video, which is the 4 opponent powers. Number 1, remorse. That's acknowledging the harm that you've done. Number 2, reliance. This is a renewing of your connection to your spiritual values. 3, remedy. Do whatever you can to remedy the harm that you've done, not as compensation, but to set your behavior in a new direction. These actions are all...
I forgot the 4th one. Number 4 is resolution, and it's all about you not feeding the parts that contributed to the initial bad behavior. Okay, let's let that guy go on.
These actions are all a part of what is called purification. This is the eradication of flaws in morality or character. This all plays into the central goal of achieving enlightenment or nirvana. I find it really interesting because this understanding of forgiveness has a focus not on, the interaction itself, but more on you being able to make a change and being better. It's almost like a combination of internal and external forgiveness. I wonder what else is out there.
People who can forgive and forget are often posed as kind, moral people. We admire those who have the strength to move past even the worst situations. But is forgiveness always good? Is forgiveness in every occasion even possible? Jacques Derrida says no because he sees a paradox in forgiveness. You can only forgive the unforgivable. If we only forgive what already seems forgivable, or because you expect them to change in return for your forgiveness, that is not forgiveness to Derrida. That is something like reconciliation or repentance. If we exchange, I forgive you, for changed behavior, the guilty person to be forgiven disappears. This makes proper forgiveness sound extremely difficult and strange, to which Derrida says, exactement, quote, forgiveness is thus mad. It must plunge, but lucidly, into the night of the unintelligible. Pure forgiveness is supposed to be rare. It is as surprising as a revolution. But it does happen. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can't expect them to change their future behavior, or to even recognize their wrongdoing. and you can't hop out of your car to go and scold them. But despite all that, you can still forgive them. Like I said, forgiveness is extremely rare. Now, Bell Hooks doesn't think forgiveness is as hard to give as Derrida, but it still is a tremendous act of generosity. The forgiver has to prioritize healing someone else's sense of guilt over their own feelings of anger and hurt. Forgiveness is an important part of creating and maintaining community, which will inevitably run into conflict. However, this doesn't mean forgiveness is always good. Many women are taught that to be a loving, caring person, we should forgive unkind acts done to us. In romantic relationships especially, there is the sentiment that, quote, everything must be done to save the relationship, which leads many women to give up their own well-being for a shitty situation. We must always remember the distinction between forgiveness and reconciliation. It is one thing to release someone from their guilt. It is another to have them change and fix the situation.
Raise your hand if you struggle with forgiving. I think there are a lot of reasons for this. Some are universal and some are specific to you as a person. For me personally, the standard that I hold myself to is like significantly higher than any standard I would ever hold a normal human being to, so I end up being mad at myself a lot. I've had to learn how to like treat myself as, hello plane. I've had to learn how to treat myself more like a person rather than this like being that is supposed to be perfect in literally every single thing that he does. Because, I'm definitely not good at that, the whole being perfect thing. And nobody is. When it comes to the standard that I hold other people to, I'm like significantly more lenient. Like to the point where sometimes I let people treat me like garbage. I think one reason why things are kind of balanced this way is because of like the way that I was raised. The way that religion has played a part in my life personally is one of the more interesting parts of this concept. Like I said before, Abrahamic religions don't put an emphasis on you learning how to forgive yourself as an individual. Neither does society. The birds are birding. Tweeka tweeka. Like I was saying before, the responsibility of you being able to forgive yourself isn't on you, it's offloaded. So when you start actually taking on that responsibility for yourself, it can be really, really difficult. We're not raised to do this. Generally, it's kind of just like a thing that at some point in your life you decide that you're going to have to learn how to do. Or maybe you're a normal person and you don't think this deeply about things. But you're watching this on the internet, which most likely means that you're not.
You're a weirdo. You're weird. Go touch grass.
Furthermore, I don't think that society teaches us to be kind to ourselves in that way, to be able to forgive ourselves. The justice system is unforgiving. And the law makes it to where if you make one mistake in your life, it could be completely over for you. One lapse in judgment could lead to life-changing consequences or shame from the public eye. So how are we supposed to get to the point where we're able to forgive ourselves when society keeps on telling you, There are a couple of things that I learned from researching for this video that I feel like are a little helpful. When it comes to external forgiveness, there's one thing that I heard when I was a kid, which I have no idea where this quote came from, so if you know, please tell me. The degrees between you and someone who did something bad are not as far apart as you think they are. The reality is that we're just all a compilation of a bunch of different random variables, and the chances that one day you get handed a bunch of bad ones is not as impossible as you think it would be. I think it's this thought process that makes it a lot easier for me to be more understanding for people. This individual who did something wrong could easily have been me with a couple of different telltale game choices. When it comes to internal forgiveness, I feel like there's a lot to learn from the 4 opponent powers. When a mistake is made, there should be a focus on evolution rather than wallowing, First, show remorse, because even though you feel bad or you might be dealing with some kind of mental anguish about whatever you did wrong, remember, it's not you who's experiencing the pain from your decisions. It's the person that you did wrong against. So keep that in mind. 2, renew spiritual connection, which for me, I feel like it could be a number of things. Connecting with your religion or recentering yourself around whatever your values are, stuff like that. Do whatever you can to right the wrong and grow from what happened. And then this last part is the part that really sticks with me. Stop feeding the parts of you that do harm. I've sat for a long time thinking about what that would mean for me for a number of situations, and I feel like it depends on whatever specific mistake that you made, but sitting with that or figuring out what that really means for you, I feel like is really important. And for Abrahamic religions, I feel like one of the most important things that they teach us is to forgive abundantly. Regardless of whether you're religious or not, I feel like there's a lot of merit in being an understanding and forgiving person. We're all just people. we're all just people, and we're all just trying. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just let people walk all over you, because that hurts. Give your spouse what is spells? Giving yourself the space to acknowledge that you need time to be able to move on from things, or to be able to properly give somebody forgiveness, is totally fine. And, you move on your own timeline. It's extremely valid, whether it's for forgiving yourself or forgiving another individual. All right. While forgiveness is difficult, whether internal or external, it's what allows us to move on and do right by others in the future. In moments where you feel like it's difficult to forgive others, try to remember how hard it is to forgive yourself. That being said, remember that forgiveness is never a thing that can really be rushed. Because even in the times where you do provide forgiveness and you weren't ready, are you really forgiving that person in the first place? Special thanks to Olivia for helping me out with the video, and all of these voice talents for reading all the quotes. That was really cool.
One more thing. I'm about to hit 1,000 subscribers, which is really awesome. I'm also going to do a Q&A video for that 1,000 subscriber special. So if you have any questions for me, drop them in my community tab. I made a post about it, and I will answer them. Thanks.
Forgiveness is still a thing that I struggle with, but I'm glad it's still a thing that I thought of.